Hi and welcome. Welcome here in this masterclass with Kay. And we're extremely happy and very proud to have you on board with this masterclass. So welcome, Kay.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you. It's an absolute delight and pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for asking me.
We're so happy. Okay, so who are you? Okay, I will just in a few words. You're NLP Master Trainer. So there are very little of them. So I'm really glad to have you here with us as a Master Trainer. And the very interesting thing that we absolutely love is that you have been specializing a lot in families, in children. And this is absolutely wonderful because I think the world needs that. And NLP is a great tool to add added value for families and for children. So perhaps if you want to say a few words about you, that would be great.
Oh, that's always the bit I hate most when people say, tell me about you. And it's like, well, there's a lot of years. So it's kind of dipping into the timeline and deciding which ones are relevant. A little bit about me is I've had many different careers, and I've had a very vibrant and exciting life. Not always good, lots of highs and lots of lows. My route into NLP, into neuro-linguistic programming, came when I was dipping again in my 30s into a depression. I'd had clinical depression previously. So I was kind of dipping in and thought, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And somebody I knew started to talk to me about this thing he'd been training in called neuro-linguistic programming. And at the time, I remember saying to him, oh, yeah, I know all about that because I'd read about it. I'm an avid reader, I'm an avid learner, and I knew about it. So therefore, I thought I knew about it. Anyway, I went along and I did an NLP practitioner and then that really was about me. That was about me beginning to really tune into who I thought I was at the time and beginning to access some of my potential. And that really just opened the floodgates for me. The journey has not ended. I absolutely love it. Now, when I say I'm an avid learner and trainer, I'm always learning something new, training in something new. I attend lots and lots of different workshops. I just think there's so much to know and do and experience in the world. But NLP for me was different. It became like a tree, really. I suppose the metaphor would be a tree upon which I could put everything that I'd ever experienced on, as well as begin to branch out from it. So that was my route into NLP. And then that was kind of the first bit. The route to specializing in what I do, and by the way, I do work with all ages. I work in the corporate world as well, but my passion and my specialization, if you like, is to help the next generation. It goes without saying how important it is for us to change something. Things are not working, and our investment in the next generation is so important. So that's really where I'm invested. Interestingly, my route to that was based on my own difficulties as a mum. So I have 3 children, biological children, and 2 stepchildren. And so as a mum, I really struggled. I struggled for several years. I was a single parent with my 3 children, and a couple of my kids had labels and difficulties within the system. I had my own difficulties, and we were a loving, committed family, but it was chaotic. And so And I was always seeking the best help, seeking the best structures, read everything, tried my absolute best, as indeed almost all parents really, everybody's trying to do their best with the resources that they have available to them. But actually, I couldn't find what I needed. So fast forward a little bit to when I started my NLP journey, I'm like, oh my God, if I'd known this when my kids were small, wow, I would have stabilized. I would have been able to direct their attention with so much more precision. So that began my sort of interest in, so I've experienced all of these difficulties for a reason, and I want to make it worthwhile. And so my payback into the next generation of parents is, look, I know what it's like. I know the difficulties. Here's what I've learned. Here's what I've learned along the way. And that began the project of Happy Brain. Happy Brain was a project I created in 2010, based on I had a funded project to go into schools and help children and teachers overcome barriers to learning. That was the brief. Now, if we just stop there and put our NLP heads on, what even does that sentence mean? Meta model it. Barriers to learning. We are magnificent learning machines. Our brains and nervous systems are learning from the moment, before we're born until probably after we die, who knows. We are magnificent learning machines. So that presupposition that there was a barrier to learning was ill-founded in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, they meant, obviously, if you meta-model it, I meta-modeled it in my own head to create what became Happy Brain, was they were saying, and still say to this day, the system was saying, some kids aren't learning the national curriculum. And some kids don't behave well in class. Some kids are non-compliant. Basically, that's what they were saying. So we go, okay, why is it that some children comply and learn easily? And what is happening inside their brains, their nervous system, when they're not learning the national curriculum? And the other question is, what are they learning instead? And what came out of my research and my project was something very, very simple, which is a triune brain-based model, which is if a brain is in a state of survival, the only thing that brain and nervous system is interested in is how to have its basic needs met, whatever they may be. And a whole range of basic needs, obviously hydration, nutrition, which some kids, by the way, don't have met. Contact, being seen, being heard, all sorts of really simple basic needs. And in fact, in the Happy Brain project, we have a kit called the Basic Needs Kit. So if enough of those basic needs are not met, then the brain can flip into survival mode. So if you take the example of a kid who leaves home in the morning, hasn't eaten for 24 hours, is dehydrated, lives in a situation where there's lots of shouting, those alert sound waves from the primary caregivers or the neighbors or whatever, their brains are already in a heightened state of stress. Maybe not fight or flight, but maybe close to it. Now, you take that brain into a school situation, and what does it do? The brain, not the personality, the brain looks for mechanisms to stabilize itself. And a great example is a kid who does ridiculous things in the classroom to get attention. Well, it's getting attention for what purpose? We judge that. We say that's wrong. You shouldn't, that child always wants attention. It's attention seeking. Yeah, it is. Because getting the right kind of attention will help to stabilize the nervous system, and therefore begin to help the child to come into a state where it is going to feel safe and able to move forward. If the child has repeated this behavior, there are so many strategies children have, and I'll be really interested in your view, or anybody listening, views about this. But some kids choose to run with the leaders, run with the naughty kids, because being part of a gang, for example, is a great way to ensure your safety, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And so on. On the other hand, on the flip side of that, the brains that are in thrive mode, the brains that are thriving, they're open, they're expanding, they have infinite potential. Those billions of nerve cells that are always looking for new pathways to light up with. A brain in thrive has infinite potential to keep learning and growing beyond safety, beyond basically being safe. Brain in survival mode does not go anywhere other than what is known. So I wonder if this is a good place for me. That I've got a little map that I would like to draw, if that's okay, which
absolutely
sure
helps to describe what I'm. If I just bring that forward, I think you can probably see it. This is my rough and ready attempt to help people to understand what a brain is. We'll come to what neuro-linguistic programming is through a different model in a minute or two. But first of all, I learned this from an educational psychologist called Madeline Portwood, who is no longer with us, but in the UK, she was pretty profound in her pioneering work with dyspraxia in particular. So I was very fortunate to get to know her. One of my kids was diagnosed with dyspraxia, and I happened to be able to spend some time with Madeline. And this is my version of what she taught me. But for me, it's just so simple that I love it. And by the way, I show almost every client this. Well, I've just changed the flip chart, and the one I took out, there's just pages and pages of a similar sort of model. So imagine, if you will, that's your brain. It's not, clearly. And a brain is not two-dimensional or three-dimensional. A brain is, well, let's pretend it's holographic. We're born with billions of nerve cells that we call neurons. And those neurons, there are lots we don't know. By the way, just to reiterate, this is my model to help people become a little bit more comfortable with the way that they can control their brains. So it's just a simple model. It's not accurate. So we've got these nerve cells, and they fire electrochemical signals and connect fairly randomly. There's a lot of suggestion that some of those pathways are already established through genes, through genetic predisposition. There's evidence that some of those pathways are instinct. And so we'll say, okay, so we've got some sort of basic instinct to move, to move our body. So the first part of building the model is to go, okay, so there you are, you're a tiny baby, you're lying in your crib, and your arms and legs are randomly moving. and they accidentally one day connect with an overhanging mobile, and there's a big sound or movement, stimulus response, we would say. Yeah. So there's a sensory bit of data coming from the outside world into the brain. So something comes into the brain. We'll say it's visual and auditory, probably in NLP's terms, coming into the brain. And so the brain has, let's just say the connections, the electrochemical connections have gone da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and then suddenly there is a ching, something happens. Now it's novel, and the brain loves novelty. So the brain goes, oh, that's interesting. I want to remember that. So the big brain begins to insulate that. We get a bit of a spike, particular dopamine spike, a reward. So the brain goes, that's really interesting. I need to remember that. And because we learn so fantastically quickly, the brain very quickly learns how to shortcut the physical movement to get the reward.
Yes.
Really simple. So brain goes from A to B, bang, A to B, bang. And before you know it, the kid's just lying there going bang, bang, and bang. And the parents are going, oh, somebody take that mobile away. Because it can do it on purpose. So the learning is twofold inside the brain. The learning is how emotional reward, say dopamine reward, novelty reward. And reward is important as we move through this evening to remember how the brain is rewarded, because it's not psychological reward. This is neurological reward. And also repetition insulates the pathway. So we build myelin sheaths, and so the brain protects it. That's the two key ways of learning. And okay, that's nice and simple. What about when you're a toddler and you're crawling along the floor and all of your instinct, let me show you this. You know, our instinct, if this is your brain, is to grow and expand and just fulfill all potential. So that's what your brain does. So you're a toddler, you're crawling along the floor, and you see something. Visually, you see something. It's moving. So all of your instinct to discover the world in which you live is to move towards it, metaprogram towards, to explore it. Eyes, does it make a sound? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? To pull it apart. Now, that's just a natural exploration of something. Nothing needed. And then the spider bites you and you get a pain signal. And your brain goes, holy crap, I must remember that. You get the cortisol, adrenaline, I need to remember that. And suddenly, in an instant, in a nanosecond, your brain goes, what did I see? What did I hear? What did I touch? What did I smell? What did I taste? You've got your VACOG input at that moment of encoding. And all of that information, all the fragments of the information at that moment in time get encoded here. Okay. Now, if that's a one-off, and by the way, this is how phobias happen. If it's extreme enough, it's just a one trial learning. Brain goes, I'm keeping that one. So brain goes, oh, I need to remember that. What else could happen to make you remember it? Because if every subsequent interaction with a spider that comes into the brain thereafter for 250 years, that's ridiculous, 25 years, on top, and that would be at the bottom of the pile, and the brain's not really going to want to access it. really silly. So, but what if a significant caregiver a significant caregiver in the room, also on the outside of the brain, goes, screams, jumps up in a chair, saying, "Oh my God, there's a spider. Oh my God, there's a spider. Quick, 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 save the baby. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Don't touch it, don't touch it." Baby's brain or child's brain needs to, long before language, mirror the patterns of the adults around it. That's how it's going to survive. And that will make sense when I come into the three brain part. But basically, baby's brain is going to mirror what is happening around it. And so that sound wave of high alert, just thinking the nature of all the animals that give their alert call, says to the brain, right, that is really freaky shit. You really need to remember that. And then we build, stay away from that forever. Don't ever go there. And by the way, I'm just putting in the meta program. We're building up a propulsion of something to move towards, something to move away from. Okay, so that helps to realize that the two key ways that we learn are through extreme emotional signal or repetition. And that's important for where I think we're going to go this evening.
So perhaps there's an interesting question that is connected to that has been asked by Semida. She asks, when can we start using NLP for children and why is it important? Because you're talking about toddlers and now adding NLP to that, what age?
Again, let's just deconstruct the question. Samita, thank you for the question. We don't use NLP with anyone. It's not a thing. It's not like, I've got a lip gloss, I'm going to use it now, but I didn't use it this afternoon. NLP is not a thing. It is a way of understanding how you get the results you get in the world around you. It's a way of understanding that biofeedback that we get. If there are NLPers listening, if you think about the tote model, just do that again. We'll come back to that later, but if you just think about the tote model, it's that is in a nutshell what NLP is. It's how we organize our brain to go out and explore the world through our senses and bring that information, encode that information in our nervous system and build on it and do less of the things that don't reward us and do more of the things that do reward us. So we don't do it to people. There are situations in life where we want to help somebody to be better than they were at something. And then we use some of the skills with somebody else. But we don't do it to people. So, and that there's the complex nature of being in rapport, being clear about what they want as an outcome, and then helping them to join the dots to achieve something. So when it comes to children, it's a different kettle of fish, because if you're working with an adult, you say, okay, so let's establish a well-formed outcome, and we're going to run through that, and then we do this, and get the states going, anchor it all in, and off you go, jobs are good, and go test it, come back and we'll see. We don't do that with kids, because kids don't know what they want. They they don't know what they're capable. Actually, most adults don't know what they're capable of or what they want, but would like to think that that's a little bit more advanced, but children don't. So the adults have a bit of a responsibility to help the child's brain to be curious in the world, to have an attitude of anything's possible. So we don't do that to the children. Well, we kind of interact with them with questions, which I'll come to in a moment. But most, and this is if you take away one thing from tonight, I hope it's this single point. The way children learn, first and foremost, is by modeling the primary caregivers. So whatever you believe, whatever you are doing, whatever you are modeling to the child is what you are effectively teaching them. That's what they're learning. Now, none of us are perfect. And if you want an example of somebody who made all the mistakes under the sun, that's me. So, you know, I'm not parent bashing at all. But when you begin to realize the great power that you have to do more of these things on purpose. So, for example, a child comes home and says, I don't know, Mary was really mean to Sophie today in class, really mean. What do you do as a parent? What do you say? Do you say, yeah, well, she's a bitch, isn't she? You know, she's been like that since she was 3. I mean, you know, what do you expect with parents like that? I mean, you know. Or do you say, oh, that's a shame. Anyway, what would you like for tea? Or, and, what do you say? If you give your child your judgments, your opinions, like, well, Mary's just wrong. She's just a wrong un. That hasn't got anywhere to land other than I need to remember that my mum thinks, or my dad thinks, or my whoever, I don't want to be politically incorrect, thinks. But there's no real interaction in the brain there. So if you want to use NLP exquisitely and elegantly, you would say, what do you think was going on today? What did you see and hear? What's happening before that situation? And what was the consequence of the action? And I wonder what you would do in that situation. And I wonder what Mary needs, and. And when you start to ask questions from a place, not from your curiosity, because you just want to get the gossip, but from a place of, are you growing this child's ability to make new neural connections and to form opinions of their own? They're not lifelong opinions, and they can shift and change them at any time. But that is, for me, the elegant use of NLP, because you're constantly encouraging the other brain, the child's brain, to be in a state of real plasticity, real movement. So I hope that in some way answers a bit of that question.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very interesting approach that you are bringing, because we tend not to ask those questions in order to expand. And what you have been sharing with us, the two modes of learning, if the brain is in a flight or flee, or if the brain is protecting, it cannot expand, it cannot ask or answer those questions. So it's very, very, when I hear you talk, of course, I'm a mother too, so I am revising what I have been doing with my kids, and how would I have if they come and gossip or talk about what Mary did, what would my answer be? And yes, absolutely, it's a very important. Thank you for sharing that, because what we are doing as parents or as towards the next generation is making that possibility of expanding their brains and making them come up with the answers.
Yeah. And in this respect, there is one connected question from Lindsay, because we can very well understand how parents can accompany their children with this by asking those questions, by helping them to thrive. But the problem is that those children are in a school system that is as it is. And Lindsay is asking, is there a way that NLP for young people can be integrated into school life?
Yes, ring me and and get on board. Absolutely. Am I allowed to swear? Absolutely. But it's really not as, or has not been until now, as easy as it seems. So, lots of my great colleagues do amazing work in education. It goes without saying. So there are amazing pockets of excellence. But by and large, my experience of going into schools is that the teachers themselves are not resilient. The teachers themselves are almost always in states of stress, if not fight or flight. And they do not have the capacity to be able to take on board something else. Because as you know, with NLP, this is life-changing stuff. This changes you from the inside out. It cleans you up. It gives you a different perspective. Now, this question in a roundabout way links to several things I want to pull in here, but you were saying, Natalie, about, you're revising your how you would talk to your child about Mary. The first question is, and to be okay with the answer to this, by the way, the first question is, who's this about when you're talking? If you want to make it about your child and your child's growth, then your attention's on the outside, external referencing metaprogram. But if you make it about you, your need to know the gossip that's going on in the classroom, or your need to express an emotion of agitation or something that was just waiting for an opportunity to come out, then it's about you. So you're external referencing. And I think getting some clarity about that without judging it,
yes,
because it's tough being a parent. It is. And sometimes you have to make it about yourself. And of course, that's true. But when you bring your consciousness into it and you're doing it honestly, then the response is cleaner. But picking back up, so somewhere in there, there was you're talking about, fight or flight brain. I think it's important for us to remember that fight or flight brains are bloody marvelous things. They're really important things. They're not wrong. They are absolutely essential to our survival. So if you're walking down the high street and a lorry, a truck comes careering towards you, you need to be able to take evasive action in a nanosecond. You need every ounce of your survival, fight or flight, extreme electrochemical response to help you to jump out of the way and be safe. It's brilliant. And then you'll shake and you'll tremble because all of that energy needs to dissipate, and it will ground. That's brilliant. Now, that's that's very different to lying in bed thinking, God, I nearly died today. What if I had? Or what if I'd broken my leg? Or, oh my God, what if that old lady next to me had, and start the terror that creates a resurgence of the fight or flight response. That's stupidity. And that's where NLP is so fantastic, because you learn to change the submodalities and go, what's the purpose of me terrorizing myself? Yeah, I've learned the lesson. I've got it in my filing cabinet. Now I'm going to carry on. Which is different again to hallucinating anything, imagining anything that is going to cause a state of stress, and then putting it in somebody else, which again we often do as parents, because we think that we're going to teach our children what to avoid and what to move towards. And that brings us into a whole new paradigm of we teach children what to avoid. Well, we do a lot of input into a child's brain through storytelling, through narratives, through what the kids hear parents talking about. When the parents are having their evening meal, even when the kids are out of sight, they're rarely out of earshot. You know, it's like, oh, it was awful today. I had a terrible day. You know, every single time that so-and-so comes into the office, my life is ruined. I just want to, sometimes I just feel like I've had enough. You know, I'd rather not be on this planet anymore. Those are banal conversations, but not to a child's brain. So the child is making, because every utterance we make, every word lands in their neurology, and they're making a map of what makes sense in their world. So they're making a map of things to avoid and have more of. And similarly, to balance it, they're hearing things like, oh, I just can't wait to get that Porsche. You know, then I've made it. So they're building their values and their beliefs based on the external world of the family system that they work in. So handle that with care. And I think we'll come back to that point shortly. But picking up Lindsay's point about the system, it's tough. The system is ill-equipped to deal with the kids that are coming through, who are super fast learners. They are rule breakers. They are who we need for tomorrow. They are so wonderful. And in NLP, we look at the individual and we go, you are such a beautiful, unique person. Let's grow you. Let's flourish you. Let's thrive you. What are you capable of? What do you do really well? Why don't you do so well? What would you like to do more of? Let's go. Let's go. Now, what holds them back, and this is where the school system comes in, but also family systems and societal systems, is a fear-based model. Because you can, and in my trainings, we make these collective brains, because you've got a family brain, so to speak. You've got fear of, if you don't get your exams, if you don't go to university, if you don't get a good job, your life's over. I mean, it'll be terrible for you. So we build those fear structures in there. And those fear structures that are endemic in our system, or have been, they're changing now. Everything's shifting, thank goodness. That's what holds the system stuck. Because, I mean, what's the flip out of that paradigm that we've been in? Who knows, because we're creating it right now at this epoch in time. But the flip is autonomous, self-directive, self-determining individuals who can be responsible for themselves, who go out into the world and make it a wonderful, easy, glorious place to live in. You know, you could go to that beautiful picture where there would be no ill health or ill health. Obviously, there will be some. There would be very little stress. There would be very little need for antidepressants. There'd be very little need for weapons of war.
Yes.
There'd be very little. And so I'm not coming from a conspiracy point of view, but we have to look at the structures that society feeds us and make a decision. Is that for me? Yes, I honor your decision. If it's not, well, see an NLP and figure out what you want to do next. Now, that again brings us back to the difficulty with children, because they're in a world of the adults and the model of the world of the adults around them, the family, the school, the society. That's a bit hitty missy. And then you get this mismatch, which I see loads of in my work at the moment, where a child is coming through who's a real rule breaker and wants to, go for it, so to speak. And the parents are going, no, you're wrong. There's something wrong with you. You shouldn't do that. And they put them in boxes and brackets. They give them labels. They medicate them. They send them to see this and that. And so a whole load of my client work, when a family comes to me, is often just saying to the kid, yep, keep going. You're doing a really good job. Can I see you parents separately? Would that be okay? You really don't want to liberate your child? Oh, okay. Let's talk about that. Yeah. And then you're into as Richard Bandler said recently, I can't remember his exact phrase. I think I wrote it in one of my notebooks, but it was, and it's bang on, which is, unless the parents, this is my words, not his, but sort their shit out, then they're just going to keep trying to make sense of it through their kids. But if the kids are coming through saying, actually, I believe that I am more than this structure, you get the dissonance. And that's what we see in schools. And it's tough.
And also, when talking about school systems, there are some children who have special problems in this system, like precocious children. And there is a question from Celine from France, who is asking, how could NLP be a tool for precocious children?
Oh, again, meta model the question. What do you mean by precocious? I think I know, and I'm going to make a big guess on that. The word I often use actually is premature sovereignty, where we get kids who early teens, they suddenly become a nightmare to the parents and often to the schools. Now, there are many reasons, I believe, why, but if we try and strip away and get to, okay, so how does that evolve using this model? It seems to me that they almost always come from beautiful, loving, kind parents who've given everything they can to the child. They've done everything they can to protect the child. They don't want the child to go through the same shit that they went through. They don't want the child to fail, to suffer. They don't want and so they know about these ideas of positivity. So they constantly say to the child, you're amazing, you're wonderful, you're fantastic. Don't let anybody tell you you're not. The words are given. Where do we want to go with this? I kind of want to dive somewhere else and bring back to that. But essentially what's happening is that the children have become the adults, and the adults have become the children. Mm-hmm. And that's the transaction that is occurring. But the problem with premature sovereignty is the children do not have a robust map of the world from which to operate. Mm-hmm. Many adults don't, but children definitely don't. So they're given choices like, yeah, sure, you don't need to see your dad this weekend. It's up to you. aged 12. That's a terrible burden to a child. I use that as a reference because I see that kind of thing a lot. The child, particularly in a sort of separation situation like that, the child is lumbered with loyalty issues.
Mm-hmm.
I've just subconsciously, and again, we need to understand the difference between subconscious and conscious activity. But if the child, I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring in my little guys because this.
I love it.
Natalie loves these little guys. I'm going to bring them.
I was waiting the moment you were bringing them up.
To give them names. I was saying to you before, I carry a set of these in my handbag. They're my little favorites. So I use these to help people to understand, to help people understand a bit more about themselves. And also it's a great way of describing how NLP is and what it is. So we'll start with the bottom of the brain, the reptilian brain, which is the neuro part of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And that's this, basically. We've talked about how those neural pathways make connections, break connections, reinforce connections, get reinforced with big, strong chemicals. We're just electricity and chemistry. You know, we're just a brain and a nervous system, and basically that's it. And we resonate with other brains and other nervous systems by giving signals. So basically that's it. If you think about the key purpose of reptilian brain, it is survival. It wants the organism to survive. And so it has sort of two functions. It has, we've already talked about, you've got fight or flight, to keep you safe, or thrive. So, you know, reptiles either basking, give me food, give me water, give me sex, I want to reproduce to, you know, to carry on, or it's defending its territory, or running like hell. There are other F's in that paradigm, including freeze. But we won't go into the freeze part today because that's a little bit more complicated. That's to do with trauma, and I don't want to do that tonight. So basically, we've got fight, flight, or thrive. So we've got survival or thrive. Does a good job. Gives you energy to get up and go, to fight or flight, or to thrive, and calm down and rest, to either go into freeze or to nourish and nurture. The next part of the brain is in triune brain theory, which is I particularly love as a useful model, is the mammalian brain. And this is our social emotional brain. And I use this as an example of what we mean by programming from neurolinguistic programming, because these two talk to each other all the time. They are what makes this map. So the mammalian brain is totally invested in keeping the whole organism safe by being part of a society, a group, a family. It needs, in particular, a primary caregiver, it helps the whole, this is the subconscious mind, feel safe, secure. So it's looking to connect. So you could think that oxytocin is a great example of a chemical that we're always seeking for. We need to feel connected so that we feel safe. We need to feel the same as the tribe, the group that we're in, because then we're more likely to survive. That's kind of explains why, certainly over the last several hundred years, our societies have been very territorial. Oh, there's a new girl in class. Oh, she's different. Oh, we're threatened. This is subconscious stuff. This is, you know, and that's what happens. So we need to connect, to feel safe. We also, from this part of the brain, we express ourselves non-consciously. Again, anybody trained in NLP, we're calibrating those micro expressions, the eye accessing cues, the you know, the body language, the everything, because those non-conscious, non-verbal signals are signaling to the tribe what is happening long before language gets involved, long before language gets involved. Now, I know you both speak many languages, so you can, and Michelle, I know you told me once I asked you about learning other languages, and you told me the great strategy of watching a film without sound, to get a sense of what was happening, and then in your native tongue, and then in the new tongue, and so on. But if you just look at that first strategy of watching a film with no sound, you get loads of information long before language is involved. And that's what this part of the brain does. And particularly in families where there are linguistic challenges, you know, this is perceived. I remember one of my kids saying to me once, to my shame, I have to say, but he said to me something. I said, I don't know, don't be silly. You know, of course, mummy's very happy, or something like that. And I remember him looking at me and going, no, I don't. That's not right. And because he was recognizing the dissonance between the words and the signals. So we've got this subconscious mind, unconscious, subconscious mind, really important. They work together beautifully. And then we've got the thinking mind. And in my model, I just focus on the prefrontal cortex. And this is where we bring our language in. And this is where we start to get information coming up the brain and try and make sense of it. Yeah, that bitch Mary, she always does it that way because in the past she, you know, and well, look at her family. So we tell stories. We tell stories to other human beings to try to influence them. We're always trying to influence. I mean, it's one of the great things that we hear so much about NLP. Isn't that about manipulation? Yeah, just go and walk around a school and you'll see manipulation in action. Thing with NLP, when it's done elegantly, or when it's, you know, when it becomes part of the whole person, is the precision of influence with the permission of the other person, to help them be better than they were. So, but what happens is this storytelling part of the brain is constantly trying to influence the world around it, to get people on board. Come join my gang, come be part of, then I'll feel better. I'll feel safe if we're all talking the same language. So that's what this guy's always doing. It's kind of going out, and we do it in families. We get these dramas that happen, and we trade dramas. And the more dramatic the words are, the more the emotional responses are, the more the big pictures and sounds grow inside the brain, the more likely we are to be able to push that picture into somebody else's head. Now, in NLP, you can think about the principle of hypnosis. These stories are very hypnotic. So are soap operas on the television. So are marketing schemes around us. And so social media, if you want to know, yeah, let's just kind of sidetrack that a little bit, maybe. So yes, we've got this whole brain. And when it's in thrive mode, everything's aligned. Thoughts, feelings, behaviors, think, feel, do, linguistic programming, neurology, neuro-linguistic programming. When it's aligned, it's a beautiful thing, and it can go out. And Richard talks about the algorithm of the quality of your thoughts, your thinking, drives how you feel, and how you feel will determine what you can and cannot do. And, you know, again, just think back to what's happening in the brain here. So yes, that's that. Now, coming back to, I was answering a question from Selena about precocious child. When you look at a child's brain is really largely processing down here and trying to make sense of the adult, the adult narrative or the social narrative. And so our first job is to try to bring that into alignment. And where it goes wrong, as I mentioned before, is when we say things like, this is my opinion of Mary, rather than, well, what do you feel about Mary? Imagine in her situation what you would do. Learn new strategies, learn new resources. And so, yeah, it's a much better, stronger teaching model. Not sure I really answered Selena's question about premature sovereignty, but or precociousness, but it is definitely a thing. And I have parents who come to see me and they are desperate because their beloved small child has grown into a monster, because the monster never learned to own, to be responsible for the results it gets in the world. It was only ever rewarded for believing that it was impermeable. And
that's very interesting that you talked about this notion of manipulation, because especially in France, there is a very high sensitivity to that topic of manipulation, that NLP is manipulative. And I think there is a lot of confusion between influencing and manipulating. First, there is this confusion. And I really believe that we live in a world based on manipulation. Everything is manipulation. TV commercials, TV shows, politics, everything. And I really believe that it's important to assume that idea that manipulation is the influence a human being has on another. As long as you're aware of that influence, you can make it positive, you can make it good for the other. But sometimes the worst possible thing is when people say, okay, no, manipulation is not good. It doesn't exist. There's no manipulation. And then you get to terrible things, honestly, we see that now with politics, with journalism, with all those spheres where we're losing our human identity. So I really appreciate that you brought that to light, also that notion of manipulation and positive manipulation. And perhaps one interesting question that is perhaps a bit more personal from Jackie, who is asking, what has NLP helped you with the most?
Okay, let me just try and pare it back to a single. It's a bit hard, but I think it gave me direction. Direction to learn about. I was always interested in learning more about myself and the world around me, but it gave me a new direction. It gave me a structure. So, I mean, even if you take the example of manipulation that you've just used there, Michelle, we are biologically. By the way, I want to just bring these guys back, because another way of looking at this is psychology biology, and neurology. And the world favors psychology. Yeah, I've just had a conversation with somebody about, I'm a psychologist. Yeah. So tell me about what you know, what's happening with the subconscious mind. So so we've got the psychology, we've got the biology, we've got the neurology. Now, the manipulation is an instinct. It's a biological instinct to get your primary caregiver to give you their undivided attention. That is hardwired from birth. We are all hardwired to manipulate the adults in our world. And depending on the stimulus response, then we begin to grow our map. So linking back to the precociousness, if a child has learned that every time it goes, it gets ice cream, life's easy. That is manipulation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Child manipulates the adult. The adult has what we know through NLP has a responsibility to keep the boundaries clean between I want to feel good as a parent, so I give my child everything, then I feel good because it's all about me, isn't it? Versus yep, I know you'd like another ice cream. No. Right, okay, off we go. Or you just, why do you keep asking me for the ice cream? I mean, why? What's wrong with you? You always want an ice cream. Do you know how hard I work to pay for your ice creams? Drama, 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 drama. They're all bonding mechanisms. Some people, some families bond over the dramas. Some families build their really strong emotional connections through fighting, through drama.
I have a question for you, Kay, because you are talking about one child, and then you're talking about families. So what happens with siblings?
Oh, who knows? I think, wasn't it? Maybe it was Virginia Satir who said every family was dysfunctional in their own unique way. And I think that's absolutely true. The only thing that matters to me is that nobody gets stuck in a pattern, a family pattern. So long as it's moving, I don't really care which direction it's moving. Obviously, I would like it to move in a positive spiral, but a dysfunctional family, I run a class which just looks at it's a playful metaphor for how dysfunctional families work. Let me find, have I got it? Here it got, yeah, I got it here. This is not exactly right, but I want you just to sort of get a sense of what is said in this diagram. What this is an early version of something, but what is the exchange between two people? And the reason they've got circles around them is because in 3D we use hula hoops to get people together and explore the space between them in the third hula hoop. But what actually is occurring between two people? So in a family situation, let's just take this as a random example. If you've got a dynamic of a combination of those things happening, there's a bit of chaos, isn't there? And there'll be times in a family when everybody's in harmony. There'll be times in a family when everybody's dissociated. There'll be times when there's going on. The question is, what is the dynamic, and whose brain is rewarded most for what is happening? So you get a child who every mealtime refuses to eat with the family, throws the food around, has a big drama, stomps off, and then the rest of the family sit down. The mum's crying. I can't use gender, but you know, a parent is crying. Another parent, if there is another one, is like, I'm not having this anymore. This is ridiculous. And all the siblings are all sat round. Some of them are going, oh, and then some of them are, you know, upset. Some of them are learning what to do to get attention. So another child's learning what not to do to avoid that kind of attention. And so all these things to do. But where is all of the family's attention? The whole family's attention is being manipulated by, dominated by the child who has the explosion. And the awareness of that is a good starting place. When you, and that's why I use hula hoops, hundreds of them over there. We just start by just going, okay, that's you, and that's your energy field. That's you know, your world, and that's you, and that's your world, and that's you, and that's your world. Let's just start with those boundary conditions of interaction. And let's just start by the bit that we communicate in. I use three, I don't think I've got some little ones here, haven't? Three hula hoops that sort of overlap. Hang on. Just do it crudely. So you've got three hula hoops that overlap, and you go, okay, so this is me, this is you, and this is the space in which we interact. This is where we have our best communication. I can see a little bit of you, you can see a little bit of me, and that's respectful. But if you, and the different dynamics, and this is what happens within families, is depending on this, the respect for this space where communication happens. You've got one person who is wanting to be in somebody else's world, but parents can be dreadful for that. Tell me what happened today. Tell me everything that happened today. I want to know exactly what happened today. I want to know every single detail of what happened today. So they're in somebody else's world. You've got family members who are completely don't want to know anything about, you know, and but if it is made to be a problem, if it is made because of the parent rules, the societal rules, the family rules, that nobody behaves like that in our family, we create something new, which is another problem. We just create more problems without going, oh, okay. I wonder what's happening, you know, with child today, in a way that child can learn something new about themselves. I had a client just very recently who was brought here under duress, did not want to come, teenager. And within minutes had shouted at the mother and walked out. I have a duty of care. She's a teenager. One of my staff members took care of her, but she walked out and went out of the building completely. And I invited the mum to stay, and I worked with the mum for the session, and that was good. Always, we want to stabilize the primary caregiver in any family situation. Always, it's never about the kids. It's let's get the primary caregiver clear, structured, some strategies, some boundaries, and coach that way. So that's the starting place. And so the mum, the mum stayed with me, and the kid disappeared off. And the point, and there's a lot more to that story that's not for public viewing, but the point here is nobody had ever left allowed that child to feel the fire in her belly and take an action and own it. And she did, and it was wonderful. And that's my key message. Yeah. Now you've got fire in your belly. Now where can you use that? You know, what else can you do with that fire? You know, as you think about, you know, the future you that we want to begin to design. Wow, what is possible? And her brain was confused. It was a pattern interrupt, obviously, but her brain was confused because she'd been to see every psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist, and everybody's been really nice to her. And, oh, tell me about your feelings. And that's not what I did. And it interrupted her pattern. And now she has to work. Her brain has to work to find a different way of being. And that's exactly the same as a dog. I have a dog just in the room with me, who the other day I was chopping carrots. She got the sensory input, the sound. Her brain goes stimulus response, carrot, food, reward, ping. And she comes up and she dances and sings and wiggles and makes all sorts of crazy noises and salivates. I want the carrot, I want the carrot, I want the carrot, I want the carrot. Children do that.
Yes.
It's just the same. It's a neurology behaving in ways to go, which of these circuits is going to give me the reward? Which one of these circuits is going to give me the reward? And I could say, I could do what I see other people do, which is, no, don't do that. You shouldn't be doing that. A dog would not care, but, or I could say, sit, paw, blah, 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 or I could ignore her, or I have lots of choices as the parent of the dog. Which response I want to, or which response potential I want to elicit from the dog.
Yeah.
And the clean one, and this goes back to parenting, is to go, I wonder what she has learned. I wonder what she has learned about getting a reward. So hold the carrot still, wait. And I'm interested, I'm watching her, I'm watching her neurology organize itself in all these different ways until suddenly she remembers, or her brain remembers, the best chance of the reward is to sit. So she sits, and then I give her the reward. So that's more than a metaphor for how we parent. If it's clean, and I had the privilege, there was just me and her in the room, we had plenty of time, plenty of space, I wasn't in a hurry, I could just indulge the learning reinforcement of what she already knew and reinforce it in that moment. But we have to think as parents, what are we reinforcing inside our children's brains? How are we rewarding their brains? And the one of the problems that I really seek to try to find a solution for, or a better way to educate people about, is we have taught the younger generation to prize talking about things, talking about happiness, talking about success, talking about joy, talking about popularity. We've told them that this is a really important prize in the world. And when you have that prize, then you will feel good about yourself. And you will feel great. You will feel great when you have those things. But they've not experienced it neurologically. And if you turn that round and you start from the bottom and you go, if the child has a blueprint for looking in the mirror, I'm going to choose a topical teenage one, looking in the mirror and going, I wonder if my body could do the splits. I don't know. Let's see, and begin to build a neurological map for, can I do the split? Well, obviously there's a psychology and the whole brain's working in this thing, but the doing of it has to happen neurologically. Put it into the brain, like Molly, my dog, who had to know how to sit in order to get the reward. So it's complete, it's grounded. We talk in spiritual or energy terms about grounding something. It means it has to be put in the neurology. And once it's in there, then you can refer to it. But what I see is so much, and it's not just the younger generation. I see it in our generation as well, although I'm older than you guys. But the ideas about the world are, you heard John Lavelle I'm really motivated. Yeah, that's very different to, God, I can't wait to do it, because you are experiencing that chemistry of motivation rising up through you. And somehow we seem to be deeply engrossed in this idea that we tell young people, hey, you're great. You're really good. But if they can't find the evidence of having done something purposeful for their reasons, getting their rewards, putting it in their brains, then that's empty. And that creates a terrible dissonance within the brain. So parents, think twice about telling your child that they are wonderful, or that, of course, you've got this. You can do this. You can, is very different, because they don't have the evidence of that.
Connected to what?
Yeah. You're stealing their self-esteem, because their self-esteem will come when they go, I wonder if I can do it. I'm going to try and do it. Oh, I feel not quite right yet, so I'm going to keep trying until I feel good enough to know that I've done it, and then I've got it. That's what builds self-esteem. So, and then we're going back to the questioning, rather than saying, yeah, of course, you're going to get that prize or win the race or whatever, rather than, I wonder what it will be like when you're preparing for it. I wonder how much you're going to have to, what you're going to have to do. What do you think you need to do? How will you know when you've been successful? Personally, my opinion, I think you can do it, definitely. But I'm interested. What do you think? And what, you're going to have to do something to do it. And even if you don't win the race, isn't it going to be cool to find out what you're capable of? And then after the race, you say, okay, so what would you do differently next time? And it's that interaction with the whole living dynamic of the brain that will build us the strong, resilient, resourceful children of the future. We've got to stop this telling them how it is, so that the parents get the temporary fix of, well, I feel good because I've just reassured my child, or I've just reassured my colleague at work. It happens with adults too. I've told them, yeah, you're definitely going to get that job. That's not helpful. That's about you trying to feel good by peddling a narrative.
Yeah. We just had a live question from somebody watching from Zimbabwe. And he's asking, does NLP have anything to offer for autistic children?
Again, I just love the question. Let's meta model it.
Yeah.
NLP, let me just start. Thank you for the question. I love live questions. I think that's where we're doing something in real time. If you think about neuro-linguistic programming is a way to organize your whole brain and aim it towards something that you choose for your future that is going to be rewarding for you and hopefully the people around you. So whether you have, and one of the key principles of NLP is we work with a totally unique individual. So if one individual's got back to front wiring, upside down wiring, who cares? I want to know, what can you do? Okay, so what you haven't learned how to express particular emotions. How's that working out? You know, what can you do in this part of your brain? What can you do in this part of your brain? What can you do in this part of your brain? So my position, and I do feel very strongly about this, and again, this goes back to my, you know, as a mum. If you look at the unique individual, what are they capable of doing? Yes. So if you look at somebody who's autistic, that's a huge spectrum. It's a big label. And in my opinion, we all sit on it. I definitely do. Most of my family definitely do. Does it matter? It's, you know, how do you harness your gifts for the world? How do you flourish and thrive, as the ancient Greeks called eudaimonia? So what NLP can do for somebody with autism is exactly the same as it can do for anybody else, which is to be present with that individual and help them to better communicate within themselves and with the outside world. It can build strategies. I can't tell you what they are. I don't believe in blueprints for this and that. I think we have to work in a flowing, fluid way with each individual, and bring them to life in whatever their potential is. So yes, NLP, of course, is a wonderful gift for people working with ASD, on the ASD spectrum.
Mm-hmm. There is one thing that we would like to talk about also is quite very interesting books that we have discovered from an author called, I think, Cooke. Perhaps it rings a bell for you.
Never heard of her.
She's fantastic.
Could you tell us a few words about those books, because we just love them and children love them.
Well, thank you. Well, yes, of course, and I'd be delighted to. The first book I wrote was at the time I thought it was my opus magnus, really, which is the Happy Brain book. That was at the time I thought that was my life's work. That's the model I'd created. A lot of what I've talked about tonight and all my examples were in there. And I wrote this for me as a struggling young mum. That was what I wanted to have and didn't have. So that was very important to me. And then I thought, right, great, done. But no, and now Jackie asked earlier what NLP, a single thing that it's done for me is to realize, just when you think you know everything, you get this, I know nothing. And something flipped, which was remembering my very early promise to myself when I became an NLP trainer, which was to do something for the children. Now, I was doing something for the children indirectly through adults, but not and so anyway, so to answer your question, yes, so there are two children's books so far. The third one's about to be published, and I'm super excited about that. And what I wanted to do with this is, it's so multi-layered, and there's a page that describes all of the NLP in it. it's so multi-layered. It's metaphor, it's rhythm. The brain loves rhythm. It really soothes the reptilian brain. So it's written in rhyme and designed to be read out loud. So we're working with the reptilian brain in rhythm. We're working with as few words as possible so that it's Milton model, you know, the gaps are filled in. And then we lead them with the images. And each image, there's a huge amount of work that goes into an image because we want to be subliminally giving information to those who know nothing about NLP. Mm. Now, you know about NLP, so the kid's making a blurry image of themselves being successful, or an image that's not blurry, but they're not being successful. The kid wants to, the well-formed goal is seeing himself surfing. And now, I don't know about you guys, but you know, when my clients, they go, I thought it was just me. I thought I was the only one who made pictures in my head. So we want to normalize the fact that people make pictures in their head. That's what thoughts are. They're pictures and sounds, electrochemical signals, presenting thoughts and sounds. So we want to normalize that and then get people to start thinking about the quality of them. So that's submodalities in NLP speak. And so that's how the book is designed, and it goes through a story and there are lots of things. But for example, we can show what a strategy is. A strategy, in NLP terms, we talk a lot about strategy. It's a series of steps that takes a blurry, unsure mind into organizing the picture, adding a soundtrack, making the picture really big and bright and colorful. And then the final step of that is to step into it and try it on. Mm-hmm. Now, there's so much NLP in that, because actually what we didn't show in this book, and I think I said this to you, Natalie, when we talked a while ago about it, is in the third book, you see Jez being successful by testing out, because this is what he's doing in his mind. And in the third book, you get to see him not only having tested it and adjusted, but actually being successful. So all those subtle messages. Now, if a non-NLPer reads it, it's a nice book. I've seen kids read it. They say, "Oh, I feel nice now," whatever. But is it in an NLPer, the opportunity to go, "Oh, have you ever?" There's the control panel inside the brain. You know, what if you had one of those? I wonder what controls you'd have on there. Should we get a bit of paper? I wonder, would you like to turn up the excitement or the sound of somebody going, "Woo, this is great"? You know, how would you do that? Or conversely, have you ever felt like that? I have. I'm not afraid of it, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. I did feel a bit like that once, and it was not a nice place to be. Do you know how I changed my feelings around that? How would you change your feelings? Let's find out what Jez does, but what would you do if you were in that situation? So we're running those strategies ahead of time in their brain. So the power of storytelling is phenomenal, as you know, and so this is my little. I would write a book. I write a poem, a story a week. That's easy, but getting them illustrated and pulled through is the difficult bit. But what I want to encourage people to do, and this is great in the NLP world, is to actually work with it, because then you're reinforcing where you take the child's attention. And there's an opportunity for self to go, "Oh, I don't like that picture of the sad kid. Oh, it reminds me of being a kid. Oh, now you've got some work to do. How about you shrink those pictures down and replace it with not that, this, not that, this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. But thank you for mentioning.
Frankly, it's an amazing job that you have been doing, and I am very curious to see what else can you bring and share, because they are absolutely amazing. You have captured the essence of NLP, and you have made it so simple, so easy to share and to understand. And the result with the kids, as you say, it's not just a story, a bedtime story. It's a fantastic tool in order for them to grow and to expand and to use this to thrive in their lives and their challenges. And the illustrations are absolutely amazing. So it's a fantastic work.
And we just had a live comment from Sniper Gang Clan, who said, me and my son read both books today. He loved the illustrations. I felt as a parent having a visual aid helped open great discussions. He could then relate, talk about this emotion. My son is autistic. I highly recommend Kay's Happy Brain training. It has helped change my family for the better.
Oh, that's lovely. I don't know who you are, but thank you. That's really, really important. And I think that the emphasis is on the word family, because none of us live in isolation. It is that relating business that we seem to have lost touch with. That's a huge generalization, of course, but yes, the emphasis is on becoming family, but also understanding that we're all work in progress. None of us know everything. And as Richard often says, you just want to be better than you were yesterday. My God, obviously I've just had 3 weeks in Orlando, so I'm kind of still going, bing, oh, there's something new that's what is our potential? Infinite. But you have to make that decision about whether you're aiming your brain towards the past, the present, or the future. Do it on purpose. Whether your brain might default to feeling pretty crappy, but what have you got to do to take it over to the bright side, to the shiny side? A whole range of emotions are absolutely normal. There's no problem. Stop pulling yourself or your children into this bracket of that there's something wrong with you. You've cried every night for a week. Yeah, you cried every night for a week. Now what? Now what would you like instead? But there's just so many things. The understanding really important things. Some of those really important essence of just know what's happening inside your body. Yes. I feel very strongly about this in education. You might learn, I remember learning to label an eye or a heart or something like that, but I didn't understand, and I'm very interested in biology and always have been, but I didn't really understand until later what actually is happening in the nervous system when I'm in a state of calm versus when I'm stressed. And you look at that, and this is part of the Happy Brain training, is to get people to realize, oh, so you've had a tummy ache for a week. Okay. Oh, I notice your shoulders are a bit hunched. Are your pupils you wouldn't say that, but you'd be calibrating, the thing. Shallow breathing. Okay, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go for a walk. And let's do a little bit of deep breathing for a while, and then maybe when we come back, we'll draw a picture. Let's draw a picture for maybe that feeling. Let's draw a picture for that feeling, or maybe we'll draw a picture for that feeling, and maybe we'll draw a picture for that feeling. And so there's so many things that we can do. Saying there's something wrong with you, you've got a tummy ache, you've had a tummy ache for 3 days, I'm taking you to the doctors, you need some medicine. What we're teaching all the time and reinforcing is the answer's on the outside. And it robs people from being responsible for themselves. Of course you want to check with the doctor if you've got any concerns, of course, but let's just start with, what can you do to reorganize the living organism? You know, have you checked that your breathing is calming the autonomic nervous system? Have you checked your body balance? Have you checked into the muscles? Which ones have got a little bit of tension? Which ones are relaxed? Are you hydrated? You know, what's happening with nutrition? Even when you bring your attention into your tummy and you think about softening it, what happens then? And that's why I use the perceived emotion scale, the KES scale, just as a calibration tool. Not for me, I don't need to know what the calibration is, but I want to give the feedback to somebody who is feeling like this with a tummy ache, and then after a walk in nature or some play or some breathing exercises or something, then begins to feel like that. They get to see it for themselves. They get that reinforcement from the outside, rather than there's something wrong with you. The only way you're going to feel better is taking some tablets.
Yeah, and talking about emotions, there is one question from Sheena. She's asking, what is the best and fastest way to reduce anxiety?
The best and fastest way, again, meta model the question. There isn't one. There isn't a best and fastest way, but I can tell you what's my favorite. So in my mental first aid kit that I carry around with me in my mind, the very first thing I would ask somebody to do is to focus on their breathing. I always, there's the fastest brain hack. And it's one of the oldest wisdoms, you know, for centuries, people have just said, just breathe, you know, just breathe. But what happens, and again, this is important to understand, when we're in a stressed state, our sympathetic nervous system takes over and we breathe very fast. When the sympathetic nervous system takes over to prepare us for fight or flight, we breathe fast because the body says, give me energy, give me oxygen, give me oxygen, give me oxygen. We tense our muscles so that we're ready to move. Pupils dilate so we can take in loads and loads of information. Shoulders go forward to protect the neck because it's a primitive way of staying safe. Body wants to evacuate everything, so we want to go to the toilet both ways to get rid of, or everything clamps up, and so on. These are natural physiological responses to stress. So when there is no clear and present stress, then we can call that anxiety. Anxiety is what we do when we go back into our natural state. There is no clear and present stress, threat, shall I say. There's no predator, there's no danger, there's no lorry careering towards you. So that tells us that the stress is coming from some thoughts that we're having, we're recycling. Now, we can do the submodality changes to affect the physiology. So we can go, I'm going to change the way I think, it'll change how I feel, and then that'll settle the reptilian brain. For me, my go-to is just start at the bottom, go straight straight to the autonomic nervous system and settle it as quickly and as easily and fast as you can. So what happens when you reverse engineer some of these things? So let's go back to the breathing. So you reverse engineer the breathing, and you know that, okay, a calm, relaxed body will breathe all the way down into the lower lobes of the lungs. Now, what happens when you breathe into the lower lobes of the lungs, particularly the long out breath, is it connects the vagus nerve, which sends signals to the brain to say, hey, you're safe. Because you wouldn't be safe if you were, in order to not be safe, you'd have to be shallow breathing. So we reverse engineer it. You say, hey, you tell your brain that you're safe through the breath. So I call it belly breathing or balloon breathing. Imagine that you have a balloon in you. It's a great one for kids. I teach every child this. Imagine you have a balloon inside your belly. You don't really, but if you did, what color would it be? What texture would it be? We draw them in hypnotically to the submodalities of it. They're fully engaged in it. Now put your hand on your belly and, let's breathe in and expand that big balloon and breathe out and deflate the balloon. So we go through that whole process, exaggerated. Now, when we've got a good rhythm going, then we begin to focus on the long out breath. So let's work towards, and it might take some time, work towards making the out breath last for twice as long as the in breath. And what happens is we're just saying to the brain, chill, you're safe, you're safe. You can take long, deep breaths, you're safe. It's a quick neuro hack. Now, that works a huge amount of time. But again, if you've got a reference for it because you've practiced it, then when you need it, it's easy to get to.
Yes.
If you've only read about it and you wait until the moment that everything's too much for you, it's way much harder because you've got to teach your brain something new. And we know from the beginning of this conversation, when your brain is in a state of stress, it doesn't want to learn anything new. It does not want to do that. It goes back to what it already knows. And the only thing that for some brains is they only know the shallow breathing. So we need to put these things in place ahead of time.
Yeah.
And, I've got my nervous system's a bit heightened and I know the reasons for it. And sometimes, I think, I'm really struggling with that long out breath. It's like my body's fighting it. Okay, let's do something else. What do I need to do now instead? Maybe it's dance. Maybe it's put some music on. Maybe it's go for a walk in nature. Maybe it's have a shower or a bath. But all the time, I want to be in charge until I get the result that I want.
Yeah.
But those are the fast ones. And another quick fast one, I'm a big fan of plant medicine, is to, and I work closely with some neuroscientists who are involved in testing what happens to the phytochemicals in the brain when they cross the brain-blood barrier. So some essential oils, I'll tell you a secret. It's a secret for families. But at times in the past, where we've had a family gathering where I know things are going to be a little bit
challenging.
I do all sorts of things in the background in the environment. I make sure I've got calming essential oils or uplifting essential oils, sort of getting in those little molecules that are entering the air that are going to go into the brain and go, parasympathetic nervous system, same as the brain, some background music on with sometimes binaural even, with the resonance of something undulating, because brains love to be trained in rhythm with what's going on around them. Yeah. They're quick hacks.
Yeah. Well, we have one comment that says children love the balloon meditation, and giving the balloon a color or a pattern really helps them visualize. So that was connected to what you just said. And we have also a question from Music 2 who says, what's the best way to teach the learning state to an autistic child? Apparently looks like this theme of autistic children is quite important.
Yeah, and I think, well, I think before I answer the question, I think it raises a bigger issue of the difficulties parents are looking for solutions.
Yes.
Or I would say you don't, the best way, probably the best way to teach an autistic child, did you say the learning state?
Yeah, the question states, what's the best way to teach the learning state to an autistic child?
Child is always learning. So it's a question of what is the thing that you want the child to be learning. And if you're NLP trained, then you're thinking about response potential. So what is it that you want the child to learn? If you want the child to learn something academic, then you need to engage all 5 senses fully and engage the imagination. You know, that 3 + 3, we can draw the number 3, we can write the letters of 3, we can get the letter 6, we can visualize huge numbers in the room, we can give them colors, we can paint them, we can do the more that you enter the 3D reality of imagination, the more the brain is making huge submodalities in here that create connections. When Michelle, this is your territory entirely, how a brain learns. But and this is my work, is we underestimate the power of play and creativity. The more enjoyable it is, the more open the brain is, the more involved the child is, you know, the more playful it is. My work is Milton model in the 3-dimension. I am surrounded by props, you know, and what is it you want the child to learn? You want the child to expand their experience. We need to make sure all 5 senses are engaged. There are simple things like, well, obviously asking lots of questions to find out what is landing, not to judge them, not to measure them, but just to find out what is landing. So, you know, I'd use that's the 8, I won't use that one. I'll use the 5 primary senses. Just put a spinner on it, okay? And just randomly spin it round and then ask a question about the thing that you want to learn. If it had a smell, what would it smell like? Do you get a sense of smell when you know, whatever it is that you're learning? Maybe you want to just go with sound and the 3 primary senses and miss out olfactory, gustatory. But the more you're engaged, you're engaging that other brain in, it has to go somewhere else, has to go somewhere else, has to go somewhere else inside the mind. And the more fun it is, that's how learning happens.
Thank you very much. I just noticed that it's almost 2 hours already.
Life,
yeah.
Time flies when I am absolutely absorbed of your way of telling the story that we have been telling one way or another, somehow with NLP, but the way you are connecting it with real brain and real experience, and bringing it down to very understandable and a passionate way I absolutely admire you, and thank you for sharing all this knowledge and all these amazing ideas that we can use not only with children, because we are ex or still children, and finally, yeah, what's that generation that we are responsible of.
Yeah.
So, okay, I cannot tell you how blessed I feel right now about having shared this this time with you, and I really hope that this is going to help all the viewers. I really thank all the questions and the viewers and the interest, because we are making a better world, taking these tools and these experiences out there for other people to use and to know how put it in practice with their lives.
And below the video, there are links to Kay's books, so you can just click right away and find them directly. And yeah, we have messages like Fab, thanks. This has been a great session. All the best. Then thank you so much for this tonight. As a youth worker, this is so helpful for all the family. And yeah, we want to thank you also for your time, because yeah, you've accepted to spend this moment with us and to spread this message. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's the easiest thing in the world, and I could talk for days, because I truly believe that the next generation have enormous potential. You know, I say this so often to a child, they probably think I'm a crazy old lady. You know, it's like, we need you because, you know, we've really messed up things. You know, we need you. Come on, you know, whoa, how are you going to grow? What's possible? I think it's so exciting. And yeah, I believe very, very strongly and passionately that the more we understand, I mean, NLP is about education. The more we understand what is happening inside ourselves and as we relate to other people, the easier it is for us to make better decisions. My job is to make simple ways to help people understand enough. They want to go off and do a degree in biochemistry or something, sure, but you just need to understand enough to make sense of your life experience, and then go out and test new things. Just find out what's working really well for you. So long as your brain's constantly focused towards what you're going to be doing, and keep, you know, we always want to be heading towards the shiny side. Is this thing that you're thinking or doing, is it making you shinier or not shinier?
Yeah.
Simple, really.
Super.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, Kay.
Thank you.
It was a great evening, and we just hope that all this will be as beneficial as possible for everybody who's going to watch that video, because it's going to be also, it will still be on this YouTube address, so anybody can watch it. And yeah, so we wish you all the best.
Thank you. I wish you all the best as well. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much for everybody who has been watching us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for your questions and your interests.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.